Live from Lothal. Good morning, Lothal. It's the Unofficial Star Wars Rebels podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to Good Morning Lothal, the Unofficial Star Wars Rebels Rewatch podcast. I'm Pete Salas, along with
Rolando Zamora.
How we doing, Rolly?
Awesome. A little bit exhausted from the trip I had this weekend.
Yes, tell us all about it. Tell us what's going on.
So the cool thing is I went up there to visit some friends, went up with some friends to take care of some side business that a buddy of mine's getting into.
Okay.
And recently I had spoken to a friend because I'm in these Star Wars Facebook groups, and there had been a bunch of people posting about a toy store in Fort Worth, Texas. It's a Star Wars exclusive store. It's called the Holocron Toy Store. And it's actually, from what I've come to find out, one of the largest Star Wars only toy stores in the US. I know where me and Pete are from. There's hardly any hobby shops to begin with, much less a Star Wars exclusive type store. So it was really awesome. You know, I got to interact with the employees. A shout out to Riley Hover, Lando Del Toro, and Nikki Fraga for, telling me a bit about the shop and, just being so welcoming and being able to chat Star Wars. So I told them about our podcast, told them what we're trying to get going. They loved the title. So
cool.
They asked me if I can give them a shout out, and I was like, absolutely. This is easily one of the coolest stores I've ever walked into. It's like you're walking into the Star Wars universe, and they just have so much stuff. Like, I know currently I'm into Star Wars Black Series. I actually picked up a Sabine Wren Black Series figure. Super cool.
Sweet.
Mandalorian figures. Kind of one of my things. I'm picking up all the Mandalorian Black Series figures possible. And so aside from Black Series, they have lightsabers, Black Series like lightsabers from Hasbro, old Kenner toys. They have graded Kenner toys, which I thought was super awesome.
That's awesome.
Super awesome.
So you're saying it's wall to wall Star Wars. That's all that
absolutely.
That's where is this? I might have missed. What's the city that's in?
This is in Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and in speaking to them, the cool thing is they're actually building a second shop, and it's set to open soon in Austin, Texas. So,
sweet. It's even closer.
Closer to us. So any of our listeners in Fort Worth and Austin, definitely stop by and check it out. It is worth your time. It's one of the coolest stores I've ever walked into.
That's pretty awesome. I can't wait to see it for myself. I was super jealous when you sent that picture. You're just looking there all smug, like, look where I am, and you're not. So, no, but that's really cool, man. That's definitely something that we should take a trek to one of these days. Maybe even do our show right there out of that place. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be super cool.
All right, cool. Well, shout out to the Holocron Toy Store in Fort Worth, Texas. We look forward to being there with you. So, as you know, this is a Rebels Rewatch podcast. But before we get to that, Rolly, let's see what's happening around the galaxy.
Let's see what's happening this week in Star Wars.
So we got two really big things this week in Star Wars. First of all, the second trailer for Obi-Wan Kenobi dropped. Mm-hmm. Just what I really loved about the trailer, Pete, was that I feel like they're showing me absolutely nothing, and I'm all for it. Like
I know what you mean. Yeah. It's like it's not giving anything away other than what you probably already know going in, and it just makes you want so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. I like go watch the trailer. They show a little bit more of what you want to see. There's some interesting dialogue between, was it Owen Lars and Obi-Wan Kenobi with regards to Luke and flashback to Anakin.
That was good.
And we got a little bit more of the Sith Inquisitors that are going to come out, specifically the Grand Inquisitor. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I wanted to note of that is they also released the official poster for the show. And what was really cool is it shows Obi-Wan like large, right, in the poster. And then in the center, like, of Obi-Wan's chest where his heart would be, is Vader. So there's a lot of like
symbolism.
Symbolism. Absolutely. There. Yeah. So it kind of like instantly made me sad when I realized what was really going on in that poster. And then the other big news that recently just dropped is the Ahsoka live action TV series has begun production, which, anybody that knows me personally knows how big of a fan of Ahsoka I am. So that is a show that I'm very much looking forward to. And that was just a picture that StarWars.com shared through all their social medias. But the picture was really cool because it showed the back of the director's chair. And it said Ahsoka on the back, and then it had Dave Filoni's signature cowboy hat on there hanging from the side.
Saint Filoni.
Yeah. And then the other cool thing related to the show is the way Dave Filoni is, I'm sure this was planned, but the show began filming on Rosario Dawson's birthday as well.
Oh, so that's cool.
Just a fun tidbit.
That's badass. Now, just before we get on, we move from this. Your thoughts on Rosario Dawson being cast as Ahsoka? I mean, I know you and I talked about this last year when it happened on Mando, but what are your thoughts?
So I don't want to give anything, or rather, I don't want to give too much away with regards to Rebels. I think smart fans will connect the dots instantly. But with regards to Rosario being casted as Ahsoka, before she even appeared in the second season of The Mandalorian, I thought the casting was pristine. Like you look at Rosario Dawson, I think Boss Logic actually had like a digital, help me out here, Pete, you're the expert,
like a rendering of what she would look like, right? Okay.
Yeah, he did a rendering like way before she debuted, and she was just like, you saw her and I was like, that's Ahsoka. If I could picture Ahsoka in live action, that's her. She fit the bill perfectly. And then when she came out on the TV series, or specifically on the first season of Mandalorian, I thought it was super cool. I have my personal like preferences as to like some of the smaller details on how I hoped she would have come out. But all in all, like the delivery was spot on. Like I can't honestly say that I could picture somebody more similar to Ahsoka than Rosario Dawson.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I thought it was perfect casting. I mean, it also helps that I've had a crush on Rosario for years. Like, I think she's
that's
incredibly
another cool
hot.
thing too, though, because she's like so much, engulfed in like geek fandom, and she's not just acting. She's all about that too. So that's also another really cool thing that she brings to the character. Yeah,
no, absolutely. As you know, last Sunday was Mother's Day, and that's one of the things like, well, time out. Before we do that, we were talking about what we were going to do for May the 4th. What did you end up doing for May the 4th? What did you watch, or what'd you do? Did you just read like you wanted to?
Yeah, I think I mostly just caught up on the book Dark Disciple that I've been reading. Super awesome. I don't remember how much in detail I got into it, but if you're a fan of the Clone Wars, highly recommend it. Just to give you guys a bit of a premise, the listeners out there who have seen Clone Wars are familiar with that season 6 of Clone Wars was titled, or like unofficially titled, The Lost Episodes. So that they didn't actually get a full season of season 6. And this book, Dark Disciple, is based off of unreleased episodes that was supposed to come out in that season. And it centers around a story between Asajj Ventress, who we never got an official ending to in the Clone Wars. She actually teams up with Quinlan Vos, who's a Jedi. And there's actually like a romance and everything that develops there. I haven't finished the book myself, so I can't really get into it further than that. But it's super cool because towards one of the last things we saw of Ventress was, she was casted off by Count Dooku. She's trying to find her own path. She encounters Boba Fett. I think she kind of like interferes with a bounty.
Okay.
But you could clearly tell she was finding who she was, and she wasn't a Sith at heart. So this book kind of like really brings that out. She's paired up with Quinlan Vos, who's kind of like the type of Jedi who he walks to his own beat. He operates on his own agenda with the best intent, but not necessarily by the way a true Jedi would do it.
Okay.
So automatically from that sense, a really cool character. And yeah, you get to see the interaction between the two.
That's
so
sweet.
I basically just caught up on my reading.
Okay.
What about yourself?
Nerd. Just kidding. No, we were talking about maybe Solo, maybe revisiting Rogue One, but I stuck with my guns and my first instinct, and I watched Attack of the Clones. And I had not seen Attack of the Clones, and I'm going to say conservatively a little over 5 years. It's been quite a while since I've seen that one, and it was before I even caught up with all the Clone Wars TV series. So that's the main reason why I wanted to revisit those prequels, was because of just how much more information I guess I have on Anakin and Obi-Wan and that whole story of them and their bond. So it was pretty cool to revisit Attack of the Clones. I keep saying clones. Attack of the Clones. It was I forgot how much I enjoyed Christopher Lee's performance of Count Dooku. Like that he was awesome in that. He was just, I mean, my God, that man's like acting ability alone. I mean, he's a Shakespearean actor and whatnot, but like he brought that gravitas to the role, and I really appreciated it. And I thought that was by far my favorite part. If you can't tell by now, people, I root for the bad guys. I'm a Sith. I'm a Sith supporter at heart. I mean, look, right here. It's one of those things. I always root for the bad guys in movies. I think they're more complex characters, and that's just my thing. But when it comes to Star Wars, yes, I do enjoy the Sith side, even though I know in the end they always end up losing. But hey, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, me and Pete actually have a really good balance, because we kind of try to collect pop figures, you know, to an extent where we're not getting out of control. And to that extent, my point is, I actually go out of my way to collect all the Jedi. And Pete actually goes out of his way to collect all the Sith. So
yes, I have. That's the only Star Wars pops I have.
The good mutual bond we could share. Like, hey, I found this for you, and I'm like, no, I found this one for you. And there's no, we're not taking from each other's stash.
I mean, you could say we are both the light and the dark side of the Force. I mean, if you will,
dyad in the Force, if you will.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, you flashed your new thing that you got this week, and look at what I just got. I've been wanting this for a very long time. This was a Disney Store exclusive, and I never picked it up, and I regretted it because I paid twice as much now. But I finally got my Darth Maul Diamond Select. So you can see that right there. Nope, it keeps fading away. I'll send the picture right now. But yeah, I was super hyped to get this one, and I can't believe that I never picked it up in the past. Darth Maul is by far, I think, my favorite Sith character. Just towards the end of the Clone Wars, when his whole storyline expands, like it really brought a lot of more depth to it, and he's so much more than what you saw in Phantom Menace, but that's besides the point. So anywho, I started this by talking about Mother's Day, and one of the things I wanted to just kind of have a quick chat about, Rolly, is moms play a very extensive role, very, very big role in the Star Wars universe, and I just wanted to kind of talk about that for a second, because I was making a list of all the different kinds of moms that that they have featured in the Star Wars universe. And one of them, I mean, let's start with like the matriarch of everything, the one that started it all, would be Anakin's mom, and her name is Shmi, correct?
Shmi? Yes.
Shmi Skywalker?
Yes.
Okay. And they've never really nailed down who the father is, right? Is this kind of one of those immaculate conception type of things, or?
It basically is. If I'm not mistaken, they do get into it in some of the Darth Vader comic series.
Okay.
I would have to revisit that and get back to the audience on it. But yeah, it's basically kind of like that, where Palpatine created a plan to conceive Anakin, so to say, without there being a father. And that's, for all intents and purposes, he is Palpatine's apprentice from conception.
I see. Oh, that's a perfect way to say it. So basically, Shmi Skywalker, she represents like the struggling single mom, I guess, for that. Moving on to the moms that never actually got to hold their babies, such as Padme. Padme was obviously, she was the heroine of the prequel series, and if you watch Clone Wars, she goes, just takes that story and runs with it. One of the other that I always found it kind of poetic that she never got, obviously she died in childbirth, so that it's almost like they take while they're writing these, they are taking like everyday real life situations and scenarios, and they're applying it to this, and it's just kind of like they cover all their bases when it comes to moms, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Now let's not forget about stepmoms who stepped up to raise great kids, such as Beru Lars was you know, she was the de facto mom for Luke after he was born. And then there's the moms who never gave up on their kids, even when their babies grow up to be monsters, such as Princess Leia, yes. and her son. So, I mean, they cover the full range of what a mother is and a mother's role. And I just wanted to give that, you know, shine a little light on that, given that it was just Mother's Day. So, anything you want to add to that?
It's our dad after that. You just nailed it so dead on, especially with your description with Leia there at the end. I'm like, wow, okay, even I was kind of like blown away with how you put it. But yeah, it's so true. It's so true how it's so applicable to, you know, our universe, so to say.
Right. No. Oh. Okay. So moving on. This is season 1, episode 6. It's called Breaking Ranks. Why don't you hit us with a synopsis, Rolly?
Sure. The episode begins with Ezra having spent weeks training in the Imperial Academy on Lothal, where he was sent in order to steal an Imperial decoder that contains the location of a powerful kyber crystal that the rebels hope to destroy. He successfully steals the decoder and the rebels destroy the crystal, but Ezra briefly stays in the academy, having learned that the Grand Inquisitor himself wants to capture his friend and fellow cadet, Jai Kell. With the help of Cadet Zer Leonis, Ezra and Kell escape the academy, but Leonis remains behind in order to uncover clues about the disappearance of his sister, Dara, who he suspects was kidnapped by the Grand Inquisitor.
It seems like this episode, there wasn't a lot going on, but there really was a lot going on. It was kind of like a good balance. It started off with like one of those, the typical Rebels plot to either steal something or infiltrate something, and there's some disguises, and I mean they really are like the Ocean's 11 crew for the lack of a better description.
Yeah, I couldn't think of a better way to describe the Ghost team.
Right,
Ocean's 11.
That's exactly what they do. So yeah, like you said, it starts with Ezra having infiltrated the Stormtrooper Training Academy. One thing I wanted to ask you, we're so used to, or at least if you're in that prequel range, that thinking that all clone troopers are all, you know, clones, but this academy, this is like, is this called phase 2, or how does this work? I mean, post Order 66, like, they're now recruiting, right? Or how does that work? They're no longer clones.
Yeah, so we don't actually get a really solid description of that until the Bad Batch. So if anybody has seen the Bad Batch, they answer Pete's question perfectly, because the clones are trained soldiers. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because if you haven't seen that, or you're not really too familiar with the transition, you're going to ask the question, well, how did they get so bad? Why do stormtroopers always miss? Right. And clone troopers always hit? Like their armor kind of looks the same. I would presume they're to be the same, but they're not. So basically what it ends up turning into is that the clones cost a lot of money. They take time to raise and train. It's a huge investment that the Empire, after they've already won the Clone Wars, so to say, now that the Empire is in charge, they don't want to commit to that. So it turns into, let's just hire recruits, and it's just a pure numbers game. You know, we're in charge. Nobody can match our power. So we can afford to just hire people that want to be here. Okay. Train them, even if the training's not sufficient, as you can tell from, I don't know of a single stormtrooper that actually connected in the original trilogy. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of what it is.
Okay. So now I see basically it was like a money saving issue that they just didn't want to keep paying the Kaminoans to keep building or growing clones, right? Basically.
Yes. Okay. That's basically what it comes down to.
It always comes down to money. But moving on, we're introduced to a training facility called it's called the Well, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of like a obstacle course to help train the up and coming cadets on like their their maneuvers and their climbing skills and their evasive maneuvers and whatnot. And we, as the episode progresses, we find out that the plot of what the rebels are there for is they are there to steal a decoder from Agent Callus, who it gives the coordinates. That's where I was kind of fuzzy. It gives the coordinates on is it a shipment of kyber crystals, or there's one kyber crystal? What happened there?
As I interpreted it from the show, it was a shipment of kyber crystals. I mean, it could be one large kyber crystal,
Okay.
Going back to, oh man, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I think that's a future episode of Rebels.
Oh, okay.
Anyways,
That's okay.
But yes, with regards to this shipment of kyber crystals, whatever, people familiar with Rogue One, they were harvesting the planet for kyber crystals. So
Yes.
similar concept here. They somehow got the coordinates or they somehow knew that this decoder would get them coordinates to a shipment of kyber crystals, and they don't say why it's important to get rid of it, but obviously Star Wars fans would know the kyber crystals power the Death Star, which is under construction.
Right.
So I guess the Ghost crew, they know the capability of a kyber crystal because Kanan's a Jedi. Kyber crystals power the lightsaber, so he knows ultimately that they can also be harnessed for bad.
Correct. Right.
So that's the mission, is for them to get that information and to cut off the imps from that.
Right. So I guess the trainers are watching these cadets, jumping around, and I think one of them kind of notices, maybe more or less, that there's one standout student that is a little too good, I guess.
Yeah.
And it actually is Ezra in disguise, and he is using the Force to sense the platforms, so that he can get ahead of them. And his eagerness to, I guess, practice in that moment kind of gave it away that there's a little bit more to this guy than meets the eye, and it right away puts him on the radar of the trainers, so much so
Yes.
that he says, make a note of number 18 or whatever it is, and that does not help. That does not bode well, because the reason they're making a note is because they right away run and talk to the Grand Inquisitor and says, there is someone here that you need to check out. So
Yeah.
In the background, Chop has got a little makeover. What's going on with that?
So that's something, again, with Chop, we just see everything throughout the Rebel series, and this is going to be a recurring thing where he gets a paint job, because I guess the Empire has the same C-series astromech droids. They just so happen to be the same base white color,
Mm-hmm.
but they have a black helmet,
Right.
as opposed to Chopper, who has an orange helmet. So regularly you will see that they paint him for him to just roam freely across whatever Imperial Star Destroyer or cruiser or what have you,
Right.
to partake in the heist.
Right. So that's one of the benefits of having Chop around, is that he's down for anything, and you can pretty much give him any assignment, and he might screw it up, but hey, he's going to put his whole heart into it.
I'm sure there was some yelling before we got to this point in the series that was off screen.
Right. So meanwhile, Ezra is assigned to Agent Callus, and that's perfect, because obviously we need to get to him to get that decoder. He breaks into his office and steals it, but he is caught by one of the fellow cadets. Now, who was that?
Leonis, he's actually, what we come to find out, a cadet that's also joined the Imperial Academy for his own purposes.
Okay.
And he sees that Ezra is up to something immediately. He's immediately onto him. So when Ezra breaks into Callus's office to steal the plans, right when he opens the door to leave, he's confronted by Leonis, and Leonis basically tells him, like, hey, what are you doing here? You're going to get caught, and so forth. But he thinks he's going to out him to the Empire, and really he prevents Ezra from triggering an alarm that'll basically, destroy the plan altogether. So they have a conversation. I think they're like, let's meet later. Mm-hmm. And then they discuss what exactly they're up to. And I believe Ezra does reveal that, what he's trying to do. And then Leonis actually reveals that he joined the academy because his sister was previously there, and now she's gone missing. So he wants to know why.
Right. So he has his own reasons for joining, which is his heart's not with the Empire. He just wants answers on what happened to his sister. So
Yes.
that's a cool little like side story that I'm sure is going to pay off in a future episode.
Okay, so this leads to a second challenge. As I mentioned, Ezra and Leonis do meet in secret later, and they basically say, well, hey, we need to help each other. We can mutually help each other. So in order for us to progress in our missions, we need to make sure to win the next challenge, because the next challenge actually ensures that they stay in Imperial headquarters. So Ezra, yet again, will have access to Callus's office and potentially finding out more about Leonis' sister.
Mm-hmm.
So in their next challenge, it's kind of the same thing. The moving platforms, I think they have to use weapons. I might be mistaken on that one. But what ends up happening is in the first challenge, Ezra helped Jai Kel, who was his friend that he made there, win. And in this one, in order to make sure Leonis wins, he actually ends up having to betray Kel.
Right.
And yeah, he didn't want to do it. He kind of throws him a cold shoulder there at the end when Kel confronts him. But ultimately, that gets them what they need to be. And that's another shot at getting the decoder from Callus. So then we see them later, and Callus, this time, they have to create a distraction. And the way that it plays out is Leonis actually has he comes to Callus's office,
mm-hmm.
and he tells them, hey, sir, your pod racer parts are here. And Callus is like, I mean, what would I need with a pod racer and all this stuff? He's just creating a verbal distraction while Ezra is sneaking through the vents, and
right.
He's going to go above Callus's office and use the Force to bring the decoder to him out of Callus's like tablet, I guess.
Okay.
So that's how they execute the plan. Ezra fortunately gets out of there with the plans. He communicates the decoder and the information to the Ghost, but he also tells them, I'm going to stay behind because my new friend here, I need to help him out to find out what happened to his sister. And I think his disappearance has something to do with the Grand Inquisitor. So I need to take care of business, even though we came here for one thing.
Right. Okay. And with all this happening on the other side of the mission, Kanan and Hera are working on actually destroying. Now that they have the decoder, they're working on a plan to destroy the Kyber crystal transport. And what was one of the things was like, if you win this challenge, you get to drive an Imperial Walker or something like that, right? That's like your prize.
Yeah. So after Ezra communicates the information to Kanan and Hera so that they can look for the transport,
mm-hmm.
Again, Ezra stays behind, and now his plan is to help not only Leonis but also Jai
mm-hmm.
Kel. So they wake up Jai Kel in the middle of the night, tell him, hey, like basically tells him, I'm sorry, but I was doing it for this reason, and you need to get out of here. Like you don't know what the Empire is and such. So
right.
There's a third challenge that they have to complete, and in that challenge, it gives them, if they win, it gives them access to an Imperial Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And what ends up happening is Jai, Leonis, and the bad stormtrooper Oleg. He was kind of the guy that was like trying to make them lose all the time, but he never succeeded until his third challenge.
Right.
So those three end up winning, and Ezra's kind of like, Ezra actually sacrificed himself to make sure Kel would win.
Okay.
Is Kel or Leonis? I believe it was Kel.
Okay.
So anyways, so Jai and Leonis are able to get on the walker, but Ezra can't. But he's like, of course, don't worry, I'll figure it out. He doesn't tell him I'm a Jedi, but he's gonna figure it out, right? So in order for them to escape, Sabine and Zeb actually set a plan. They have Chopper set explosives on a walker. So right away, the Academy thinks that they're under attack. And in the process, that's how these guys get onto the Imperial Walker, because they won that challenge. And it basically lets them walk out of the Academy at full force. Yeah. Right. So they basically just blast their way out. The Ghost comes in and saves the team. Ezra and Jai take off, but Leonis wants to stay behind because he still wants answers.
Right, about his sister. Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, he starts like shooting over their head just to kind of like, I'm still with you guys as a diversion, like, And I thought that was funny. It was like, in Stormtrooper fashion, he is missing every shot that he's taking above their heads. So we move on to the baddie shows up. The Inquisitor meets with Leonis and informs them that Ezra is a Jedi and has already encountered, and he wants Leonis to tell him more about him. So once again, the Inquisitor hot on their tail. He's doing what he was hired to do. He is a Jedi hunter through and through. So how does the show end, Rolly?
So the show ends, of course, the Ghost crew gets away yet again, which is great for us because we get to continue the adventure.
Right.
So the show ends with Hera telling Jai that they're going to take him back to his mother, but you should probably lay low because you're wanted for murder, like Anchorman. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, they tell him, like, we're going to take you back to your mother, but you guys should probably lay low because now you're going to be wanted for leaving the academy.
Right.
And then, so Hera takes him on the ship, and then you have a dialogue between Kanan and Ezra, and Kanan basically tells them, how did it go? How did the mission go for you? Because Ezra was very much on his own for the first time. Yeah. During this mission.
And this was it took place like over a span of like a week or two,
weeks,
right?
Yeah, it was several weeks. I know like when we enter the episode, he's already been there in the academy for some time. So he was very much undercover on his own, communicating information outward, but he couldn't get any help on the inside until the plan was ready to be, executed. And
you could really feel that throughout the episode where Kanan was like concerned and missing him. Yeah. Like, we need to get him out of there. It's been too long, and, it's kind of like an undercover cop, But anyway,
he kind of like gives off the impression that Hera, because they're talking, and he's like, no, I'm worried about the mission. I'm not worried about the kid, but it's very much obvious he's worried about Ezra.
Right. That was the end of the episode. I think it was like I said at the beginning, it was not a lot happened, but like a lot happened, which is really weird dynamic. But overall, I enjoyed the episode. I did get lost a couple of parts, especially like I could not tell. Maybe I need to watch it again and I missed it. But was it a shipment of kyber crystals or was it one? But that's neither here nor there. But they intercepted it and they fixed it, so it's not a problem. So as that episode wraps up, that was episode 6 of Rebels. It was called Breaking Ranks, and that brings us to the end of our episode 2. And before I let you go, I want to once again ask that you like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying what we're doing. This little podcast that could, as I like to call it. I know that Rolly puts a lot of work into the show prep for this. And I just want to remind everybody that you can go and visit us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and of course at radiolothal.com. And for you traditional podcast fans, we are at all the places that you would find a podcast. Trust us, I worked really hard to get us on all the platforms. Just search for Good Morning Lothal, the unofficial Star Wars Rebels podcast. So next episode, Rolly, is entitled, what is the title of the next? It's called Out of Darkness. Okay. So I usually ask you what you think the next episode's going to be about. So just based on the title alone, Out of Darkness.
I think you got me on this one, Pete. Okay. I've rewatched this episode. Sorry, I've rewatched Rebels a couple of times now, and title alone on this one, it's a mystery to me. So,
well, then you're in the dark with this one, so to speak.
There we go.
So if I'm going to take a guess, I'm going to say that it has something to do with. It's going to be a lot more Sith oriented. Maybe we're going to meet more of the Inquisitors or whatnot because of the dark side of the Force. Kind of a play on that word. I don't know. I could be wrong, but we will find out next week. As I said, that brings us to the end of our episode of Good Morning Lothal. Thank you very much for joining us. I just want to say once again, please like, rate, and subscribe. It's very important. And the rating especially, that helps bump us up, like I said. But for now, I'm Pete Salas along with
Rolando Zamora,
saying, may the Force be with you always. Goodbye from Lothal.